Thank you, James. Charles, let me welcome you to the programme. And you're, of course, still in Africa. What's going on over there on the health front?
Thanks very much, Mike, and good afternoon all. This follows David's segment rather neatly. Recently, I visited an African manufacturer of syringes called Revital, one of very few on the continent to have received WHO pre-qualification for an auto-disabled syringe, essentially one that cannot be reused. Now, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, surprise, surprise, put $4 million forward to make this happen. And I visited to better understand the apparent conspiracy between the pharmaceutical industry and its controlling influences to both create and solve a problem at the same time. So Revital in particular is described in its press release as one of 8 manufacturers who have this status, which is very difficult to achieve, and that it will cut down the response time for delivery of syringes throughout Africa. Again, they quote Violaine Mitchell, the director of immunization at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as saying that Revital is paving the way to expand local production of syringes. And also highlighted, she says that they're proud to support Revital's efforts to sustainably expand the supply of these syringes in Africa. We'll come back to the sustainability in a second. I've just got a couple of photographs of the production line of a facility that runs 24 hours round the clock and produces many, many different types of syringes. But as you will have seen in the Gates grant form, they were initially to sort of bolster the COVID-19 vaccine effort and then to deal with what are being referred to as routine immunizations. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, of course, the situation has moved on, and now the focus is on malaria and the delivery of a malaria vaccine. So we have the malaria vaccine implementation program, which says that as of October last year, the WHO now recommends, specifically highlighted there, the RTS/AS01 vaccine. Now, I've highlighted that for a reason, because it recurs throughout the literature. The WHO go on to describe it as being the first malaria vaccine to be recommended in October 21, and that it's reached nearly 2 million children. Sorry, slip of the tongue, but probably fair to say too many. In Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi since 2019. The WHO go on to talk about who develops and manufactures it. And this is where we begin to see what I'm referring to by way of a suggestion of a conspiracy. Of course, there is support here from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, just as there was for the manufacturer of syringes. Side effects very much downplayed. They say there's an increased risk of febrile seizures, but that they will dissipate soon. And there's no other reference to any possible side effect. The African CDC has got very much behind it, and again highlighted is the specific vaccine here, RTS/AS01. They do at least concede that it shows only partial protection against malaria in young children. But of course, that's where the focus lies, is on young children. Now, what I should do specifically for the audience that may not have travelled to an area that's regarded as being a malarial zone or had any experience with malaria is that malaria is described here by the CDC as being something that has symptoms that are generally non-specific. And there are many things listed: fever, headache, malaise, neurological complaints, pretty much anything. And it finishes with the diagnosis of malaria should also be considered in any person with fever of unknown origin, regardless of travel history. Well, that's an absolutely enormously blank canvas, and very much those that have been in countries in belief in the emergency. It's very similar. And I would say, in terms of the medicine and regard of the pharmaceutical industry, malaria is Africa's blind spot. And whilst COVID and uptake of the vaccines has been very low in Africa due to a massive skepticism, well-founded, in the pharmaceutical industry. Malaria, of course, is used as a catch-all to describe illnesses of almost any kind. So with that in mind, it's easy to see how the suggestion of a vaccine for malaria could produce results that might not be found elsewhere. And again, just at the bottom of that slide there, again, the CDC suggesting that despite the fact these could be symptoms of anything, patients suspected of having malaria should be urgently evaluated. So we wind the clock back now to 2013 to see where the partnership between GlaxoSmithKline and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation started. And the text of that press release then refers again to the RTSS vaccine strain, specifically cited. So what we'll do now is we'll just have a quick look at, a listen to Ronique Vora, who I spoke to, the Director of Sales at Revital. And this is his take on how the cogs were within the pharmaceutical machine.
I mean, Gates Foundation is not stupid to invest money in this organization. USAID is not stupid to invest money in this organization. There must be something that Revital is doing for them to be confident enough to give millions of dollars into Revital for further expansions. As long as, especially if you're proving to them. And all of these organizations at the end of the day are kind of linked to each other.
Yes.
Gates Foundation can call UNICEF in a jiffy and say, hey, how's Revital? What do you think about this? They can call FIND, they can call PAF, they can call IFC, EFC, they can call any of these guys and say, hey, we're looking at an investment, what do you think about this?
So exactly as he articulates there, there really are wheels within wheels, and due process is really sort of cast to the wind. The other thing that I want to return back to is the idea of sustainability. I asked him very much about the waste that's produced from their products, which are, of course, exclusively made from oil-based plastics. And here from 2021, from the Journal of Waste Management and Research, is a bit of text saying that the estimate going back to 2021 that nearly 300,000 tons of medical waste every year is produced in Africa. And highlighted is the text that regular disposal of pharmaceutical waste into general waste has allowed streams of different medicines to enter landfill and aquatic environments in Africa. This has affected the quality of the surrounding land and water accessed by the residents and wildlife. Now, that's something that's just not talked about by those that would be the same people who are, of course, sponsoring such initiatives, very much banging the drum for climate and the environment, but at the same time, not in any way checking the businesses that they're sponsoring on the other side of the fence. On screen now is a photograph of the production facility. This is all the raw material plastic that will go into those syringes, and these are the molding machines that run 24/7 to produce these disposable plastics, for which there's no plan and there's absolutely no pressure on the industry to change the way in which they're producing. So it's very contradictory, and one might say, in fact, completely hypocritical, really. Now, I concluded by asking him what his sort of projections and predictions were for 2024-25. And this could be extrapolated probably across Africa, but he referred specifically to the government of Kenya, who are sending 100,000 healthcare professionals out to more remote communities in order to educate about health. I think we can see where that's going to go. Concurrent with that, Revital are going to put another 100,000 subcontracted employees into a similar role, but specifically to take testing equipment out to rural communities. And lo and behold, they will also be able to provide treatments for anything that may be identified by such tests. He was also very quick to point out that malaria and diabetes would be the priorities in terms of vaccine delivery for this year, not just within Kenya, but Africa as a whole. So it's a fascinating insight. And as I say, they really came across as being a naive but willing participant in this scheme, unaware really of exactly how they're being manipulated through funding in order to achieve a particular aim. Also worth noting that he himself was very much aware of the rush within which the COVID vaccines had been produced. He had several vaccine-injured friends. And so, I hope to be able to make the full audio recording available at some point.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Thank you for that. James, let's welcome you back to the program now at this point. And Of course, you're here to talk about the latest developments with respect to the World Health Treaty and the IHR. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the parallels are absolutely astonishing. The naive involvement in these plans, I think, is universal. And so, what I'm hoping to talk about, if you want me to just jump right into it,